Hello. I've already decided that the thumbnail for this video is going to be really weird. So, today is January 14th, 2021, and today I'm going to talk about being a theater kid because I miss theater. And because of the pandemic, I have not been in a show or a musical or really any kind of production in over a year now, which is kind of a record for me. That doesn't really happen. I've been a theater kid for a long, long time, and so it's kind of weird to not be on stage and to not be performing something, to not be working towards some show, but what can you do? More specifically, I'm going to talk about the things that I hate about being a theater kid, because I low-key just miss theater, but I don't know. I feel like if I discuss the bad things, it'll make me miss it less. It's kind of like when you're a resentful ex-girlfriend. You're like, if I talk about how terrible they were, I'll miss them less, right? I don't know. Um, so I'm going to just compile 10 things because this could really go on forever. Uh, Here are the 10 things that I hate about being a theater kid. Number 1. Rehearsal is constant, and being a theater kid kind of makes you miss out on things. So, I remember more specifically in middle school, every year there was a Halloween dance where you'd dress up in costume and you'd go and have a fun time at the school dance. Every year I'd get so excited for it. I was so thrilled because Halloween, that's my shit. I love Halloween. I was so excited to go, but every single year, without fail, I was in some kind of show, some kind of production that either had a performance or had rehearsal, like a very important rehearsal that I couldn't miss the night of. And so it kind of sucked. To this day, I'm like, I just wish I had gotten to go to at least one of them. But it's fine. And as far as it missing out on things because of theater, there's so many things I've had to miss out on. I remember I missed a choir concert of mine, which had a lot of repercussions for missing it because it was a big part of my grade because I had a show that night. I also remember, like, I remember I missed homecoming freshman year, which all of my friends went to, and there was a whole lot of drama, just hot piping tea that I missed out on because of a frickin' rehearsal. It's just, if you are someone who has so much time on your hands and doesn't do jack shit, theater's for you, 'cause it will take all your time and suck it dry. So, um, that's what I have to say about that. The second thing that I just hate about being a theater kid is auditions. Auditions are terrible. I hate them. They're awful. I'm just gonna say it because it's true. Auditions are straight up unbearable. Um, the honest truth is that when you find out that there's a production or something going on that you want to audition for, and you look at the cast list or the cast of characters and you decide whatever role you're going up for and you go and audition, chances are it's going to be a room filled with people who look and are exactly like you what am I saying? In terms of what your type is and the kind of actor that you are. So going into an audition room is a wonderful, lovely way to make yourself super fucking insecure. An easy way to be insecure is to go to auditions. Quite honestly, it's terrible. Imagine walking into a room filled with people who look very strikingly similar to you, around the same body type, around the same height, and typically have the same vocal range as you. It's just, it's hard to feel and look special in a room of people, a sea of people who are all exactly like you, which is why every audition is hell, because it's really just like a bunch of sharks trying to attack each other. It's just trying to get further ahead in an audition sucks. It does. It sucks. And I will say that I'm not very great at auditions. I have not mastered the skill of auditioning one bit. And you know what? I say it's a skill because it's a skill. And the honest truth is that being good in an audition almost has nothing to do with how good of an actor or singer you are or whatever it is that you're auditioning for, and almost has everything to do with how quick can you think on your feet. Like, how quick can you do this? And I'm dyslexic, right? And so when you go into an audition and they're asking you to read a script that you've never seen for the first time, just a cold read, I fucking hate that shit. I can't do that shit. And that's why I fail in most auditions 90% of the time. If I had a really bad audition, it's probably because I couldn't read the words on the page. And so it kind of sucks. It's more of a reading test than anything. Honestly, being good at auditions is a skill. It really is. And I will tell you that auditions that I've done really, really well in, I can feel it. Like, I will say there's no better feeling in the world than doing really well in an audition. Because as soon as you leave, you just like, oh, I got this bitch. There's been like 3 auditions where I've felt like that. And every single one of those 3, I've gotten casted. And I've gotten casted in a good role, whether that be like a main character or just someone who is important to the story. It's really nice and refreshing, but it doesn't happen often. It really doesn't happen often at all. And the honest truth is that auditioning is kind of a skill within itself. And every bad audition I've had, I either haven't been casted at all or I've gotten ensemble, which, say what you want about ensemble, ensemble's not that bad. I actually quite like ensemble. You know what? I just want to be a part of the show. I'm not too particular. I don't have to be a main character or have a character at all. I don't necessarily need a role. Ensemble's cool. So yeah, auditioning sucks. The third thing that I'm going to talk about is kind of what I like to say post show depression or post production depression, kind of like postpartum, but not involving children. It's basically after the show has finished. So when you're a theater kid, you spend so much time, like I said, rehearsals and everything takes a lot of time from you. You spend so much time invested into this show and so much time just learning about this character and trying to be better and trying to get really into it. And then when the show is finally over, you're like, what do I do with myself now? And then you start auditioning for new shows again. But for a while, you're not really over the other show, especially if you were close with the cast members. There's been some shows where the cast members just feel way too close because you see them every day for months at a time, for hours at a time, and so you wind up becoming very close with them, and then you don't see them after the show's over, like on a regular basis anymore, and you're like, why? And so it's kind of depressing. So there'll be a time, I feel like, after a show is over where theater kids will literally just walk around moping like they're Bella from New Moon and they're like sad about a breakup. They're literally just like, the show is over. And all they talk about all day long is the show because it's all they can think about. It's like what's on their mind. And depending on how invested you are in the show, this can be the case. And if you're not that invested, then it probably won't affect you as much. But listen, I know that there's still some shows that I'm still not over the fact that they're over. And then there's other shows that I rarely even think about because I wasn't that close with the cast or I just didn't care as much, I guess. But there are certain shows that I'm like, oh, I wish I could just go back for one showing and just perform it one last time. And I guess that's why it's such a cool moment in time when you're in a show because you definitely wind up missing it later on. So remember when I said it would be 10? It may not be 10. I don't know. We'll see. It may not be 10 things. Not that I couldn't think of 10 things, just this video will be long enough, I think. Um, Another thing that how do we say, have a problem with when it comes to being a theater kid is the divas of theater, the Sharpay Evans of the bunch. There's so many of them, and I think that everyone can get a little Sharpay Evans like when they're a theater kid at certain points, but for the most part, like most of us are able to maintain a level head and not be like this super selfish, like overconfident, like human of an ego train. But there's some that just can't resist but to be the Sharpay Evans, and you can see them from a mile away. You can spot them in auditions because they're overly friendly and they feel super fucking fake. Like you can totally tell that they're just being nice to you now so they can talk shit about you later, and they're trying to find your weaknesses so they can step on you. It's just, it's so apparent to tell and it's so easy to notice. There's a lot of Sharpay Evans in the theater world. It's honestly irritating to the point where as soon as you walk in the door, like, you can just see them. Um, they're, uh, they're a special gem, I guess you could say. Okay. My next point that I'd like to make is all about casting and being in a role. It is entirely heartbreaking when you are completely wrong for all the roles that you love. There's certain characters in certain shows that I will always want to be that I will never be able to be. Maybe because I'm not the right look, they look so different from me, or maybe because if it's a musical, they have a completely different vocal range, and anyone who's been listening to me talk can probably tell that I'm a bit of an alto and I don't have a whole bunch of soprano notes. I can hit some soprano notes, but it's not very how do we say? There's not a lot of them. There's not a lot of them that I can hit. And like, there's so many roles that I will just never be casted in because I'm simply just not right for them. And that's the thing. Like, theater can so crush your confidence because it can literally just make you realize things that you already knew deep down, but like push them in your face. Like, there's certain roles that you will just never be able to play no matter how hard you try. Certain things, like, you may not be able to play now, but, with enough time and experience and work, you can eventually get there. But that comes with its limitations. There are certain things that I will simply just never be right for. Certain roles that are just never gonna fit. And that is devastating. Truly heartbreaking. And you know what? Maybe I'll make a part two to this because there's plenty of more things, but I'm not going to make this video overly long. To mention a few more things just briefly, if you're an alto, musical theater is gonna be difficult for you. Most altos at least have some soprano notes, so they'll survive. Like, generally speaking, I know that any role that I'm casted in a musical is probably going to be difficult for me, and I'm just going to have to spend extra time on it to get those notes. Um, However, there are some altos where no matter how much you practice, it's gonna be a problem. And I can only do certain soprano roles. Like, it's gotta be a low, like, mezzo soprano situation for it to work out for me. Just being an alto in general is a struggle, which I feel like, again, I could make a whole nother video about. So yeah, that's most definitely for certain. And then two more things, and then I'll wrap this up. Uh, Anyone who's ever had to break down a set. Now, this varies. Some people who are in theater don't really have to do this depending on the company or depending on how big your like your production is, honestly. There are some people who they have a whole crew who breaks down the set for them, because once the show is over and a new show is going to be taking place in the same auditorium or venue or wherever, then when they break down the set, it's a long process and it takes forever and it's grueling. And if you're part of the cast, it kind of breaks your heart a little because you've fallen in love with the set and you've fallen in love with the show. And now you have to tear it down literally. Like you literally have to tear it down. So it's not thrilling. And if you're someone like me who's really clumsy, you can get hurt a lot because it's usually a lot of physical labor. And I fall often. So, and just one last thing that is kind of annoying about being a theater kid, and that is the onstage romances, right? Like the romances that happen in a show, or just really having any cast member that you don't like that you have to work with. Now, personally, I've dealt with plenty of cast members that I didn't like, but I've never been open about my distaste for them because one, it's just kind of rude, and two, like, why would you? Why would you be open about your distaste for someone if you're in a show with them? Because that's just asking for trouble. You don't want to get in a fight with people. You don't want to cause any drama behind the scenes because there's already going to be tons of drama behind the scenes. I'll just tell you that now. You don't want to get into that because it's already going to be a thing. And honestly, the director knows it most of the time. Most of the time, the director sees it, and you don't want to be associated with any drama that's going on behind the scenes because that is going to get you like nowhere good. It'll be tough to get casted again after that, honestly. Um, and I say like romance in specific because if you've ever had to work with someone that you don't like, who's like your co-star, your opposite of you, who just is your love interest, that is, it can be difficult depending on if they are overly unbearable. If someone you don't like is like your love interest in a show, you can probably live with it and you'll be fine as long as they don't dislike you back, and as long as they're not open about their distaste for you, then it probably won't be a problem. But there's some people who just, no matter how nice you are to them, no matter what you do, they're gonna want to fight with you. And unfortunately, other people's actions can sometimes look bad upon you, so you really just kind of have to take the shit from them. Like if someone's giving you a problem and it's like a fellow cast member, most of the time, generally speaking, you kind of just have to live through it. Um, Not all the time, obviously, not in every scenario, not in every case, but generally speaking, you gotta take the high road. So, and the final thing I'd like to mention is not liking your costume. Now, there's going to be plenty of shows where you don't like your costume, and that's fine. That's okay. But when I say not liking your costume, I mean like your costume being straight up not functional with your body. Like, if you're in kind of like a cheaper production company, or just the whatever, I can't speak. Whoever's putting on the production, if they can't really afford like grade A costumes, it could be an issue, especially if your costume isn't your perfect size, or if it just doesn't really look right. It's a whole thing. So that one's not as bad though. That one you can live through and it's alright. Okay, this video is going to be overly long now, so I'm going to end this here, and like I said, maybe I'll make a part 2, maybe not, we'll see. And that is things that I hate about being a theater kid. So yeah, anyway, have a wonderful day, if anyone's actually watching this video, because nobody watches these videos, and sorry for the busy background, but it's the way it is.